Thank you for giving me the space to speak on a subject that is uncomfortable to some, inconvenient for many, but absolutely necessary for a just society. Today, I speak not against women. I speak for balance, I speak for truth, and most importantly, I speak for justice. Because justice, if it is real, cannot afford to be selective, whether on basis of caste, creed, religion, and if I could say, also gender, as it is enshrined in our Constitution. And if justice itself becomes a means of justice, injustice, which it is becoming today, at just too many places that we can even fathom, it is our duty to speak up against it. For decades, our public discourse around gender justice has been one-sided. We have spoken very rightly about violence against women. We have built laws rightly to protect them. But somewhere along the way, we stopped asking a critical question. What happens when systems meant to protect become tools to harm? What happens when men become invisible victims of presumed guilt, misuse of laws made to protect women, false allegations, prolonged litigation when they have done nothing wrong, social erasure of their pain, and absence of laws for them when they are the victims and leading them to a psychological breakdown? This is the forgotten half that I'm talking about today. The forgotten half where, and I would share few cases that we have personally dealt with, though these are just a glimpse of the cases that we deal with on a daily basis. The forgotten half where Prince, an 18-year-old boy, spent 5 years in jail, falsely accused in a POCSO case, only to be acquitted after languishing in jail for 5 years on the basis of evidence that he showed to the authorities on the very first day that he was taken to the police station. It took our system 5 years to see the evidence and to tell him that he was innocent. He was acquitted, but there was nobody who said sorry to him, there was no one who was punished, and there was nobody who was held accountable for ruining his entire life. Prince is one of the stories told in my documentary film, India's Sons. That small boy has not been able to start his studies ever again, no matter how much I tried to convince him to, because he said, Didi, मुझसे अब पढ़ाई हो नहीं पाती. जब पढ़ने की मेरी उम्र थी, वो 5 साल मैंने जेल में बिताए. The forgotten half where a Dheeraj Gupta from Faridabad, a 32-year-old young man, spends 5 months in jail, falsely accused of rape by a woman he had never seen. Forget touching that woman, he had never seen the woman who accused him of rape, and it did not take fraction of second for Faridabad police to take him up and put him behind bars. We don't fight only for men, we fight for families as well. Dheeraj's wife was pregnant at that time when he was put behind bars. All this was done to extort 50 lakhs from him. We were able to finally get people who implicated Dheeraj in this false rape case arrested, but can we erase the pain that Dheeraj went through for the 5 months he was in jail? We talk about Chandan, a young man who spent a month in jail because he conducted a DNA test on his son. As soon as his wife came to know about it, she cried dowry and domestic violence, and he was immediately arrested. A month later, reports came where it was proved that he was not the biological father of his own son. And he was implicated in these false cases because the woman wanted to hide that the child was somebody else's. Despite him being the victim, he was accused as a perpetrator and his family dragged into a dirty legal battle for years. You would be surprised to know about a case that we handled and counseled, where a man was accused in a dowry case by his wife, and not just him. Please count. The man, his father, his mother, his sister, his brother, his sister's husband, his sister's husband's parents, his brother's wife, and brother's wife's parents. Almost 12 people were implicated in a dowry case. And how do people get out of it? By fighting for years and years, either going to the High Court to get the FIR quashed or pay up the cops who are there to take money to drop even one person from the FIR. These are not anecdotes. These are examples of lived realities of endless men in India today. Unfortunately, we don't have gender-neutral laws in India to know the numbers because somehow these discussions always get restricted to numbers. Is humanity about numbers? I would rather ask you. We don't have gender-neutral laws, and that's why we don't have numbers of men who suffer or any commission, any platform that would bother to record data on false accusations or the wrongs that are happening to men. But there is a problem. Suicide data in India tells us a deeply disturbing story. Almost 1.4 lakh men committed suicide in 2023 alone. Overwhelming majority of suicide deaths in India are men, many linked to family disputes, false cases, and legal harassment. Just day before yesterday, a young 26-year-old engineer who had topped his class in 10th and 12th died by consuming poison in Gwalior. He was falsely implicated in a POCSO case. His family was demanded 60 lakhs of rupees. He couldn't face the humiliation. He chose to end his life rather than making his family suffer because of him. Conviction rate in rape cases in Delhi, which is known as the rape capital of India, has dwindled down to 4.3% post-Nirbhaya. And it's a very, very disturbing statistic. Genuine rape victims are not getting justice, and people are extorting hellua amount of money through false rape cases. Just merely on the basis of a statement, a man is picked up, thrown behind bars, no investigation at all. 498 conviction rate in Delhi in last 4 years is just 0.2%, and across India also it is barely 2 or 3%. But thousands and lakhs of people get arrested under these charges, men and women including, and sometimes there are minors also who are implicated in false matrimonial or rape cases. I do not even wish to start speaking about cases, and Sanjana, I would like to particularly draw your attention towards this. I hope somebody makes a story on this. Because our laws say that the consent is 18 years, there are just so many 17-year-old young boys languishing in jails because of consensual affair with either a 17-year-old girl or a 16.5-year-old girl. You know, these young lovebirds do not understand the law. They do not understand the challenges of the law, but the law is very clear. If you are below 18 and if you're a boy, you belong to jail if you had relationship with a girl. Sometimes, even if there was no sexual relationship, the boy is still put behind bars. Another very concerning aspect that we see day in, day out is custody battles where fathers do not get to see the face of their children. Very quickly, I will share with you that I'm right now helping a young boy in Bihar fight a false rape case. I wanted to speak to him face to face. I booked an e-mulaqat a day before, and the next day in the afternoon, I was on video conferencing with him. Just one day it took me to talk to a stranger, that too for 45 minutes. You know how much time it takes for a father in India to get to see his son or daughter in a custody battle or a matrimonial dispute? Anywhere from 6 months to sometimes 3 years. And many a times when they then get to see their child, the child then calls them uncle. Ekam Nyay Foundation documented 825 reports where men were either murdered by their intimate partner or they died by suicide due to false allegations or abuse by wife and in-laws. Adultery forms majority of the causes for these either suicides or murders. Yet these numbers rarely make headlines. Although there is a little bit change right now post Atul Subhash's case in Bangalore, but still they do not make headlines. Why? Because data without dialogue is ignored and data without empathy is dismissed. At Ekam Nyay Foundation, we decided to change that and bridge this gap. We believe in justice without gender bias and that justice must be equal or it is not justice at all. Our work focuses on documenting misuse of gender-centric laws, providing legal awareness and support to falsely accused men and victims of domestic abuse, interventions in organized cases of rackets, scams, honey traps, sextortions. We have created safe spaces for men and their families to discuss their issues within the community and with us, without us being too much judgmental about them, which they usually face when they go out and share in the society. And we are doing extraordinary researches that have never been attempted before in India, though we are in 2025. We do not deny women's suffering, but we simply refuse to deny men's suffering and admit the fact that there are a lot of men who are unheard and whose pains are never addressed. My documentary film, Martyrs of Marriage and Misuse of Dowry Laws, and India's Sons and Falls rape cases tell real-life stories of men and how they are wronged by the system. At Ekam Nyaya Foundation, we give voice to these unheard stories, hold hands, and help people reclaim their lives. At our conferences, podcasts, and forums, we bring together judges, lawyers, male victims, psychologists, parents, survivors of false cases, and yes, women as well, who believe in fairness and who believe in equality. In fact, our conferences have a lot of percentage of women who are somebody's sister, somebody's daughter, or somebody's just friend. At our recently concluded Ekam Nyaya conference, former Chief Justice of India, Justice UU Lalit, echoed the work that we do. Pro-justice does not mean being anti-women. He stated that if there are Sita Mayyas, there are Shurpnakhas too, and our society to do manthan on and empathize with issues impacting both genders and not just one. For a society where men's issues are usually looked down upon, for our organization to have former Chief Justice of India come and speak, I cannot begin explaining what it meant to us. But it definitely told them that yes, our work for the last 13 years has created a space for people to feel that yes, now they can talk about this without being shamed or being called anti-women. Empathy is not a limited resource. Let me say this clearly, empathy for men does not reduce empathy for women. Justice is not a zero-sum game. We can protect women and we can protect men. We can punish the guilty, whether it is a man or a woman, and safeguard the innocent, whether that is a man or a woman. We can reform laws without dismantling protections. But for that, we must stop treating conversations about men's rights as taboo. I stand here not as an adversary of feminism, but as an ally of fairness. Not as a critic of law, but as a believer in its responsibility towards all, irrespective of gender. If we truly want a just Bharat, we must have the courage to reclaim the forgotten half. Because a society that listens only to one side eventually stops hearing the truth. I would invite you to take a look at the work being done by Ekam Nyaya Foundation, read about the on-ground impact stories that we have had and the documentary films that we have made and lives that we have transformed through our help, support, and guidance. All of this is available at ekamnyaya.org. Thank you so much once again to all of you for listening so patiently to me. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, Deepika, congratulations to you for raising such an unconventional topic. And this is a very crucial topic because otherwise both the genders should be aligned equally in the society. And, but the thing is that Indian society is evolving. And there are many changes which are now coming, and we are in the period of transition, and we are in the period of movement. And whereas when we see that still, in our society, the 100% of the resources of the society, the assets are owned and controlled by men. And whereas, and the women, they are 50% of the whole population, in everywhere, but 100% resources. But it sounds very weird for me that to just anticipate this particular concept that how can the gender which owns 100% of the societal assets, they can cry victim. Now the reason is that maybe they were used to the patriarchal system of the society where they are used to saying that yes, the power balance is in their favor and you should do everything, I'm not going to bother about anything. But the systems are changing. Women are becoming more and more aware. So one thing, this is just an observation, and just I wanted to, since you are working in the field, you will just like to respond to it. Prevention is always better than the cure. So why to put yourself in such a situation where you are a victim? the gender which owns 100% of the societal assets, that is on their responsibility, that they have to be more aware, they have to be more critical, they have to ask more questions. While the couple is dating, why don't they ask questions from the girl that what she is, and why don't they wait, and why don't they exercise patience? They are falling back upon the family members to find out the match for them. The gender which owns 100% of societal assets, why aren't they more aware about the whole thing, which is as it is happening in the foreign countries? The dating skills should be formed the part of our education system, which is not there in India as of now. Just I want to have your observation on that. Thank you so much.
Please do not mind what I say, but when I hear perspectives like this, I cannot do away by thinking that this sounds exactly the same to me, that why did a woman go out because that is why she got raped, or why was a woman wearing a short cloth and that's why she got raped. If Dheeraj Gupta was just going on the road driving and there was a woman who was willing to file a false rape case because she wanted to extort 33 lakhs or 50 lakhs of rupees, where was Dheeraj Gupta at fault? He had not even met her. Prince was studying very nicely. He was topping his class, wanted to become a chartered accountant. Some family decided to ruin his life because they wanted to occupy his house. Where was Prince at mistake? There was a boy who goes on dating app, just meets the girl. They decide to go in a club regularly. The woman is set up by the club and he is asked to cough out 50,000 rupees. Is it wrong for men to date? Is it wrong for men to marry? If a marriage breaks down, and because the marriage broke down, the woman feels entitled that she can take away lakhs of his wealth, where is the man at mistake? Was he at mistake to get into a relationship? Was he at mistake to get married? Then what we are saying is that men need to be really, really cautious. That the world now is not so fair for you, so you better be cautious because you are responsible for yourself. Because if something happens to you, you cannot even say that this is wrong. I would like to respond with that, ma'am, and very quickly, ma'am. We say women are very patriarchal and they are very wrong to women. And there are a lot of women who are very wrong to women, and there are men who are wrong to women as well. But despite the fact that men hold so much of power, and men are the judges, and men are in the police stations as well, it's the same thing. They can also be extremely nasty to men. They have the same stereotypes. The way a woman has a stereotype that my bahu is going to be like this, they have a stereotype कि पति है तू यही करेगा, या पति है तो तू गलत होगा, या लड़का है तू रिलेशनशिप में है तो तेरी ही गलती है. Where should these people go? And on above everything else, Article 14 of our Indian Constitution, Article 15 of our Indian Constitution, equality before law, equal protection before law. Why do men have to beg somebody for justice? Our constitution had envisaged that, but it is not happening now. And if we are going to say that we must not even talk about it, no, I will hell talk about it, because it is wrong. And I see them crying, and I see them crying as bitterly, and I feel bad seeing them crying as much bad as I would feel when I see a woman crying. So there are problems. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we'll keep this short and quick. Ma'am, the mic, please, for you.
Great, wonderful presentation, very moving. And just what ma'am just now said, just to take off from there, all along we have also been struggling with the same set of concerns, and this perspective that women are enemies of women and all of that, the battle of sexes and the battle between sexes. So I'm just wondering, over the years we have developed this kind of, shall we say, a slightly detached angle where we look at all of these issues from a development rather than from a crime, legal, law and order. We see it as a part of, what we call the structural challenges in our society. Do you think a little bit of the shift will need to be made even in the narrative that you are sharing, so that that distinction between all of that
Absolutely
emerges?
beautifully said, ma'am. That is actually so profound. If women are victims of patriarchy, if they are not being a part of the workforce, it's the development that is being hampered. If men who can be very, very productive, but they are wasting their times in litigations that are absolutely not worth it, it's a development issue as well. Children who could be studying and, you know, being performing and becoming the better future citizens of the country are now spending time in the courts in custody battles, seeing their parents fight. That is a development issue as well. And I promise you, ma'am, that I'm going to make sure that I change. Yes, I would definitely adopt this. This is beautiful, ma'am. Yeah, no, absolutely. Unfortunately, there is a battle of sexes today, whether we want to admit or not, but that's not how a future can be built together. Men and women are not enemies, they are companions and they are equal partners in taking this country forward. And if we're going to waste too much of time in, you know, feeling or casting each other as enemy, I'm sure that's not a great thing at all. Thank you so much, ma'am. That's a great perspective.